Recognizing time frames, line conditions, settings, waving panels, core track calculation system. The position lines high correlation sets all levels of frequency. We already know that through its equation. But the modification lines and settings, there's three communication screen lines, adaptation lines, and applications of travels. You get in your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles. Now that position location to its avatar setting puts everything at tither. Now the all avatars are now tither into divergence and allegiance and its own alliance and settings, waiting on standby to get in their settings and applications. So it's kind of like getting to imagination screen and directification system where your body is automatically changing its own setting and its own geometric operations design. That's a 42 setting and line position location to its set locations, right? Starting off the vessel line into the pod. Now it's in pod now. Once it gets in vehicle, the conditions in the avatar line set locations will automatically take over the line screens. Now the vessel in position to its settings. That process of a communication system. So it would go with, it's tethered now. All avatars are now tethered into their body tractions and division. Clocking system foundations. You got your 7 cities, you got your foundations and your clocking sound, right? Everybody's line signal, species are at 24 gamma, line setting, all communication system, teams down 48 lines to gamma, communication line interference, radioactive line condition standard programs, radioactive calculation lines of radiation travels. Now, position lines of travels puts everything calculation screen lines. So once the bodies come into transfusion and direct lines to calculations to screen lines, adaptation, and mutation, they'll be in the full communication of their vehicles or frequency. Applied to the screen lines, adaptation lines of service. Okay, species is reaching that point of view, coming in line condition setting 144. Platforms of the earth, air, water, and fire. 5L is the heart. That's unification setting and all travel communication system. So the divergence and allegiance alliance sets communication settings as sectors, vectors, and quads. Puts everything together and travel in point lines of graph communication setting. The soul identification system will come in its own coordinates in line position locations. It will get in transformation lines and will copy and paste the communication to its setting through its pod, position lines of travel to its foundation, graph calculation lines to its 12 foundations, of its ground settings, powers, and the atmospheres, and its highway set locations, right? So the correlation setting to the avatar settings will take over the body, the vessel, the pod, and the vehicle. All right. Track communication settings of travels, point lines of graphs. Now we're going to center correlation setting and travel communications and direct signals. Screensavers. Okay. Species got to get a direct line signals how to modify this high calculation lines into the grounds, power, and the atmospheres, right? 3 sensor calculation screen lines. Teams got to get in position locations into line signals. Getting line communication setting, we understand the process, how we go into alpha, mega, micro, macro, right? Then we go into position lines and centers. Now what we've done with the dragons, location is settings, that's set free now. 3 lines of triangulation lines, spot centers, triangulation lines of 1 and position of 2, and center correlation setting attractions. Direct lines of yin and yang and process calculation, right? Cross line highest interference and 8 line rotation surface, platitude screen centers. So what this puts in position of is positions of bridging in set calculations, all right? Bridging in set calculations, all right? You get in the walkway surface in a 4-line setting in position location of travel, okay? And then you get into all planet surfaces, 12 foundation grounds, 150 feet apart from each other, right? And then you got the bridging, all right? That's what we're doing in track locations. Now you have to go through space modulators into time sequencing and calculation, okay? So the connection line centers, because remember, the VR system is already set up in correlation, coming in at position lines. Walking, crossing lines, but it's in a tube, okay? It's in a tube. Right, it's in a tube. Everything's in a tube to get to their site locations, right? So you go from one planet to the next, all right? Set up the bridging lines, foundation graph lines. Position of its process. Now it can, in position locations, go from here and travel, okay, to one planet system to the calculations, right? Then it can reappear back on its platform of communications, okay? So I'm just trying to get you to understand where the vessel, the pod, and the vehicle has the relay stand traction. Okay, how to travel, right? Vortex, time late, time jump. Okay, so set up the screensavers. Now we're going to go through modification lines, time frame line settings. put position lines of travels into 4-line cycles and line condition setting point lines of graphs. And we have 3-line position location travel. All right? Very complicated stuff. Travel position lines of pi, arrow point line condition setting. Fast forward. Okay. So getting that position lines of setting puts everything in traction locations, right? Then we get a modification lines into redirect and position location, all right? Now it gets complicated because we're adding 4 lines of screens equals lines of 5 traction, all right? Now we go line setting high interference. We add position of 1, and then we go in positions of setting and wait till it gets to 20. 20 set locations and sendings of travel, okay? Overcross lines of 1 equals lines of 2 in line position of 0. Now we're going to go with the equal lines of 9 in position of 2 lines of cycles. Okay, track provisions. Now the 4 center line calculation lines of 1, 2, 3 lines of 4, 5 lines of 6. Core track interference line condition lines of triangulation line condition set in position molecule design line. Process calculation lines of going fast forward into line condition setting. Tag centers into graph calculations in 4 cycles and travel correlation. Process calculation line ground centers opens all signals. Platforms at 1, 2, and 3 set location. Get in that communication line screens adaptation lines of service, puts all levels of equal line correlation setting and panels of communication lines of travels in line position location and system of cortex. Direct modification line signals crosses line conditions into all lines of 1, 2, and 3 track location. Process calculation lines of elixirs, cosmic flame, cosmic fire, serpent flame, serpent fire. Now you have to understand how that works, location setting to the connections, high center interference, going fast forward, awareness in position location, and systematic line condition setting to its interpretation, screen lines, and adaptation. Process calculation of ground centers, earth line rotation surface and travels, point lines of orbiting, and line setting and travel in point lines of graph communication. All right, so we get in direct line signals. Now we had 5 lines of cycles and 1 lines of 6, and position lines of high center location of 5, over cross line signals in position locations. Getting line setting high interference is 7 lines cycles, equals lines of 1 cycle, decimal 1, decimal 2, decimal 3 in traction. Okay, putting lines of 8 line cycles, direct lines of 2 lines of volume, sets correlation lines of 5 into 7 into 12 into 24 and track location. Position lines of center, operate the circles, operate the system. That puts all lines of program setting, okay, I'm going to modify in 1 holographic setting. Okay, so we go through torcal fields, line position of space and time and track location. Looks like a fishbowl. So we direct the signals in cross-line conditions, 4 line cycles and line generation screen. Okay, that puts us in the location of crop circles. How it modifies the cycles and line rotation surface in all connection setting and all line mechanism line force, rotation surface, and clause of correlation setting in position location of the system. Very powerful stuff. Done. Right, and that's all through frequency lines. Okay, through time measure or scales like calculations off balance or inbalance position travels. Points, lines of graph, we're going to go through 8 line screens. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand where you have to get out of times of everything. Because you have to understand the direct and redirect of everything in travel. Okay, direct lines of time equals lines of 8. 8 equals lines of earth, right? But, see, this is it. This is the but. When I say but, this is the balance, unifications of travel. So this is the earth, right? Box location, right? But when you're leaving the earth, but equals lines of the earth, in position location is time and space. So we got earth equals lines of correlation lines, and but in between. All right, so it's balance, unifications of travel, right? Now it's in its space. Once it gets modification, the position lines of its vessel to its pod of its vehicle comes forward in track location of attraction that puts everything in position location of muscle memory in line condition setting all through confirmation. Okay, done. Okay, that's what you guys are. That's why you have bodies. Okay, you start with the body line tractions, changes communication lines to metaphysical. Mental capacity line, psychological line, psychosis line communication, emotional and spiritual line communication. So travels. Okay. So you get the vessel communication lines into pod, into your vehicles and track locations, right? So there's VIM numbers. We already know that track location lines, what it is, the line communication setting, 12 lines of indication system. Inhibitors over line screen into your CPU unit and process calculation line connection setting. In that position lines of 24 line cycles, puts lines of 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4 line cycles, line condition setting, one cycle, one surface, one traction. Okay. Space modulation, screen lines adaptations. We take the 2 lines. Remember, it's all levels of travel. Okay. So I'm trying to get you to understand these things, how this all works, right? So in that position volumes, its program location to its vessel communication setting to its pod, and its location to its vehicle and travel, right? So I want you to really pay attention to these things because your vessel and your pod and your vehicle are coming together, all right, through the team. The position location setting to the species line is out of the vessel. Now it's in the pod. Like, just want you to understand how that works in line communication and setting. Each body track location system has a modification lines of its mind. It adapts the system location of its calculation system. Understanding how to use the alpha, understanding how to use the delta, understanding how to use the theta, understanding how to use the mega, and in position locations, all calculations, alpha, omega, line condition settings. All right. Getting communication lines, highest locations, alpha line, omega line, okay, micro and macro in calculation. All right. All right, so in that position location system, right, it is what it is, but when it's on its position of space, it's automatically traveling, okay? It's traveling right away, okay? It's traveling right away, okay? So I'm just trying to get you to understand how to get position locations and get out of space of time. Point lines of 2 track locations, 3 line communication setting position programs, or line connecting highest interference and 4 line rotation surface of the mine, or its memory line communication setting of 4-track provision. Okay? So I just want you guys to understand the importance, how it comes into the vessel, into the pod, to the vehicle. Okay? It's much easier to understand that. Let's go through Earth line, right? There's an Earth, right? That's the Earth, right? But when you're in space, it travels right away. Okay? It travels right away. Okay? That's what we have to get into identification of, right? Now, once you understand that, everything in muscle memory comes to you, all right? This is how you come into attractions and use your body as a magnet that brings things forward in track location, okay? So understand that, then you can do whatever you want. Triangulation box, you're sending it out through messages and travel point lines of graphs, or you correlate settings of ground centers and earth line rotation, surface and track locations. Okay, so there's so many ways to doing this, but once you get a ground centers, it gets so much easier how to use it in travel, right? But you have to understand the earth line has its transition, location of transactions, and mutation, right? Of platforms of communications, okay? That's the ground center location of setting, all right? So that's what it is, guys. Once you get into that, how to use your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles, it twines the system in a 3-line communication, okay? So you get in position lines of the earth. Let's get in position of air and water and tractions, right? And position lines of high calculation. Water line screens in position lines of air line centers into earth communication setting, and we'll go in position of fire and traction, right? Fire lines communication setting in lines of lacing line communications and programs. Direct calculation lines of waving cycles. Then we come into the alpha line charts, indirect signals modification, right? Then we go into the high calculation lines of delta, in position of travel. Then we go into all levels of theta in line communication lines as travel. Then we go in communication lines of mega in line communication of travel. Okay? So it's really understanding all points line direct signals, puts everything in modification setting, how to use your grounds, your powers, and your atmospheres. 4 box location triangulations inside correlations, or triangulation outline communication of its box location of high position. All right? So you guys have your test on Friday, so we're going to get into that. So understanding position lines, let's go in a crop circle, basic grounds, right? There's the grounds. There's the grounds, crop circle, right? Process communication lines of its compass, okay? There's the pi, right? Here's your planet, okay? So you need elixir, cosmic flame, cosmic fire, serpent flame, serpent fire, okay? So that's the grounds of the earth. Okay, now Planet sets position of signal down cross location to a setting. Process calculates line direct signals. Now you got position location of your sun and you got position location of your moon in traction. Direct modification lines in kaleidoscope communication. Process calculates line settings. So that position of its planet gets in position to its location centers of operation. Direct lines modification line height interference, cross line signals, down cross location of vector. Line condition setting of flux of communications. Constant correlation lines attractions sets up its position location to its system, all levels of its capacitor. Okay. All right. So once that's set up in line condition setting, X2000 comes in, line settings, and 3 sublocations. Right. Travel mechanism line screens, 1 position over 2, line position lines at 3, and position lines at 4 at track location. Right. So the actual crop circle, okay, is its planet setting, all through modification of Intel. Sonar correlations, and then we have 3 circles in center core setting, right? And let's say we got position lines at track location 1, 2, 3 line settings of balance, right? That's a crop circle on the Earth. So you have to understand how this all modifies the system. All laser comes up in tractions through the center core system that modifies the settings of travel. Point lines a graph of Schumann resonance and travel correlation. Okay, very complicated stuff, right? So your test is based on how to use your atoms, how to turn it into a crop circle, how to use your molecules, how to structure its division location to its modification setting, to its space modulators, and how to use protons and electrons in fusion, all through track locations, your binaries, okay, your transistors and your resistors, what crop circles are used for, interactions. Let's go through 12 ground center. Operation surface of platforms and line signals. Vectors over cross, downshift line communication to a system and program. All right. Crop circle here, crop circle here, crop circle here in traction. Right. Now, this is where the equal line cycles come in track locations, platforms and settings, box frame. So you don't need circle. You know, you can understand your more position, your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles. Once you get in your vehicles, you come in infinitive shapes, letters, numbers, and symbols, all through track locations and data and files. You understand the process, how it opens all signals and position location of travels in calculation. Okay. Sending lines of data files in 1 tractions in 3 cycles in set location. All right. Sun and the moon comes in tractions in position lines and centers, all levels have track location. Okay. Line signals into solar panels and track location. So I'm just showing you how this all works through a crop circle of design line and center lines as communication to its flux and travel position of point lines of graphs. Cross line signals, sonars, 3 line communication setting position program. Okay. So comes in space lines, modification of screen lines, adaptation lines of surface. Okay. Process calculates lines of grounds. Platform settings in the opposite direct signals at set location of 3 cycles into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 line connection setting programs. Direct line signal modification, cross line signals of data and process calculation. Then we go into over cross line signals in position notification center of travel. Okay, very complicated stuff, right? Set location of the platforms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So the actual crop circles are platforms to basically for the avatar to walk across line. It sets position of its location system to another line communication setting of its journey of its destination to its location and travel. Okay. All right. So once you understand how this all works, this is a crop circle on the Earth. Okay. This is crop circle of the Earth. It's all set up, right? It's all different lines of angles. So get in that position of 4 line cycle, line communication setting, and 3 line communication. 3 line cycles into 4. All right, then you got 4 line cycles and position lines of 3 and track locations, all through confirmation, right? Triangulation goes in here in setting, all right? So in position triangulation goes in here in setting, okay? Process calculation lines, over cross line signals, platform 1, platform 2, and traction, right? So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand how the platforms work in crop circles and how to create it through its anomaly in grounds, powers, and atmospheres in set location, right? All right, so there's 1 position of 2, 3 lines of 4, 4 lines of 6, 6 lines of 8 in track location. All right, so getting in position lines of high correlation. Let's go into mental capacity lines and meta force line communications of elixir, cosmic flame, cosmic fire. 3 track locations, right? Ground centers, operation line circles. Okay. Now we go into the routers and routers at 4 cycles, right? So we line signals to center core, 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. Okay. Okay. So we always work with the earth, which is the grounds, right? But when you're in platoon line screen, your correlations of your vessel and your pod changes communication lines of centers into platforms of communications of travel. Okay. Then you go into higher line, division line, as screen lines, adaptation lines of surface. Your infinity 8 in rotation center correlation. Okay. All right. So there's so many ways why you have crop circles in direct signals and modification, right? These are all crop circles. See? All crop circles, everything. Letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols can turn anything in its setting to its operation surface of its own calculation, right? Crop circles, right? Always has the grounds, always has powers, and always has its atmosphere. It's positioned to its own pod of travel in position location to its setting, right? So everything has to have a ground, everything has to have a power, and everything has to have an atmosphere. So you have the grounds, you have the powers, and you have the atmospheres, okay? Sending correlation and interference, atmosphere line screens go in adaptation lines of correlations into magnetic highways of your set location. Right? Process settings in all position modification. Right? So that's communication with settings all through operation lines, surface location system of travel, endpoint lines of communication. Okay. All right. So getting into that position locations, you have to understand how to really balance out your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles. All right. Getting more lines of communications. Remember, you get into the ground lines. Let's go through the ground lines of level. And we'll go through line centers at 21 line cycles we'll wait till it gets to 35 tractions. And we're going to go through line signals, adaptation lines of surface. All right. All right. So we take the 2 tractions and 1 line division. Okay. We take the 3 cycles and 5 line division. Okay. We take the ground levels with point lines of the graph, center core system that creates the crop circle and calculation. Right. Now, we spin the cycles in the opposite directions. Puts lines of calculation line interference in position lines of program. Process lines of 5, sets lines of 3, sets lines of 1, set lines of 2, and levels in position of ground setting and travel. Okay? See the intelligence? Then you get line communication in the clustrum. There's the intelligence, right? All right, so there's so many ways of looking at these things. All right, and travel. All right, so we'll do that again. This time, I'm using time frame line sectors, vectors, and quads of 22 line cycles and position location of 30 line communications of 11, position lines of track locations into 10 and to 4, right? Everything I say is a travel mechanisms, how I use it through its vessel, its pod, and its vehicle all at once, all right? Coordinate setting communication lines. Everything of letter, number, shape, and symbol has its own binary, has its own transistor, and its resistor of its own vessel, of its own pod, of its own vehicle. Okay? So the vessel is the grounds. The pod is the center. The vehicle is the highway. Okay? Ooh-ah. So getting into that position location gets a lot more understandable, being understood. All right, so we're going to go to the 23 line screen and direct lines equals lines of correlation settings and point lines setting interference of 30 cycles and line direct location 11 volume in position of 4 line communication of travel. Okay, that's all done through the vessel, pod, and vehicle and set locations. Okay, that's the correlation lines of inner ground side calculation lines. Grounds, powers, and its atmospheres. Set location of its highway traction. Okay. All right. So there's 4 lines of communications, right? And 3 cycles. 3 lines of communication lines of 4 cycles, right? Female polarities, male polarities, male polarities, female polarities, right? How to use that through settings. So I'll show you exactly how this all works. 24 line. Okay. Let's start with 24. Let's equal line position location and separate the cycles. Transits over line screen. Platforms at city. 1 line communication of 3 cycles and 3 correlation. Okay. All right. So timelines of 1, 1, 1 in set location. Right. All right. XT1000 comes in, scans position lines of travels, 1, 2, and 3 set location. All right. Sets communication lines of grounds, road graph, communication screen lines, adaptation. Oh, runway. All right. Now, in position location, 2 line center has a runway tractions, right? So we're changing communication lines of 2 are travel. 1, 2, 3, 4 set locations, right? Solar line sails and line setting and routers in correlation. Process calculates lines of ground, line center operation, line service, location setting. So everything in the ground, okay, equals lines, correlation, different lines of frequency, location, higher self, and your avatar and your sim. But you understand how to use your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles at different levels of frequencies now. Ground line communication lines the higher self, line position location to its vessel, right? That's right. Puts communication higher self is its vessel, right? Pod is its avatar. Now we're connecting. The vehicle is its sim. All right. So get position lines of higher correlation setting, position location of pod, line condition setting, in position location of its vehicle, and track location. All right. Done. All right. All right. So that's center core calculation. So the actual 2 is positioned to its vessel and its pod and its vehicle in set location. Right away, how you use 2. You're using the grounds, the powers, and its atmospheres of its highways and traction. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing through a 2. So it understands the ground lines of 2 of the higher self equals lines of high center location setting and position of its vessel. The avatar line screen high center appearance location equals lines of its pod and position location calculations, and how to understand how to use the sim in position locations and navigation and correlation lines to its vehicle and traction. Once you put that all together, all lines of communication comes together in one cycle, one panel, one operation. Process calculation lines, so you go through the platforms into your highways. Hooah! Then you go into magnetic highway streams. Then you go into your OMI highways and your narrow links and platforms of communication. Okay? So I'm just showing you exactly how this is all set up in your set locations, right? Because the team has to get into more modification lines, all different lines of 3 frequencies now, because they're reaching higher correlations of the mine itself. But understand the vessel and the pod and the vehicle puts everything all together in one cycle, one division, one location, one clocking. Okay? The center core system is everything in yin and yang. We already know that in process, right? That's where your Earth is. But your Earth is in circularity and rotation now. Okay? It's in process communication to its system, all through calculation, right? So setting lines of grounds, setting lines of powers, and setting lines of the atmosphere in 3 cycles, right? Tubing line screens. There it is in track location line set location, right? Then you have to understand, once you get into 3 cycles, you got 1 in position of 2 and 3 cycles, right? Grounds, powers, and atmospheres. 3 lines, right? So you have to understand the platforms of 1, platforms of 2, and platforms of 3 in calculation. Okay? Then all lines magnetic highway connects all together in 1 cycle. So it connects right away. Let's go through line conditions of greens, lines of 1, 2, and 3 settings. Okay. Ground centers of 1, 2, line centers of crop circles, line conditions setting, position of program. Directs calculate the line center location. Let's go into lines of 1, 2, and 3, and 4 set locations. Process calculates lines of data formations, comes into triangulation, split lines of anomaly, line conditions, molecule, structure of its design. Process calculates lines to a box frame, line position of its program, position location to its location. Process calculation ground centers and line conditions setting in position location of its Earth. Okay, and the equal line is the balance of communication setting that puts all levels of operation surface and track location. Okay, but you have to understand how to use your vessel on the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres, right? Through that settings, right? Your higher self is modified through its vessel, its pod, and its vehicle. So is your avatar, so is your sim. Okay, so this is how the team synchronize their systems into the computer operations of Tither and their set correlation setting attractions into their 5 elements of set design that's in their modification of space modulations. Okay? All right, so once you understand the platforms, then you get in position of higher lines of setting. So you're in this position and you're just going through higher levels of communication, right? So you go You know, you go into other dimensions, other space, other universes, other galaxies. Okay? But you've got to get your ground lines. Ground lines of cycle, ground lines of surface, and ground lines of the atmospheres, and ground lines and location magnetic highways. That's a 4-track revision. So you have crop circles to work with you through its elixir, cosmic plane, cosmic flyer, line condition setting, and serpent plane. 3-line division lines of platforms are 1, 2, and 3. You can travel through that, stay with the ground centers. You can offline communication to its position location in the opposite locations of 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5 set locational platforms. You can have a direct line signals, cross line signals, and platforms going downshift cross location to a system and travel. So then you can go into this line directions in a 45 angle and line condition setting. So why do we have crop circles? So you can get design lines. So you can understand how it sets up the cities, it sets up the foundation, the clockings, the bridging, and the planets, and set correlation. All right. Then we cross line signals and platforms of communication, of travel. Okay. Positions in 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. There it is. Boom. All through a crop circle of the Earth, right? So routers and routers, round line communication setting. Let's go through course lines of channels and travel. Okay. So this is your Earth, right? These are the platforms that you go through. Exciting, isn't it? Right? Now, whatever you want to bring out to the equation is totally up to you. Let's bring in the grounds. Let's bring in the powers. Let's bring in the atmospheres, and let's bring in the magnetic highways and set locations. Oh my gosh, it's coming in 3 directions. Traveling too fast. All right. Let's go into the blue line cycles. Ground center lines of 1, ground center lines of 2, 3, and 4 track location. All right, direct lines of signals. Then we get into cloak and dagger. 1 setting, 2 setting, 3 setting, 4 setting, set location. All right. All right, then we just build. We can go into purple, and 4 track location. All right. Then we can go into gold. All right. So I'm just showing you how you basically punch these things out and travel correlation lines of track. Bring it out through its equation. Okay. That's why you have crop circles, to create platforms and higher levels of space modulation. How to use through your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles, and set traction. Okay? That's why you have it. That's how it's all set up. All right. So getting that position location is all connected to its atoms, molecules, protons, electrons, and location setting, all carefully modified through photons, right? But I just want you guys to get the basic grounds, how to really identify your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles in one. Tethers and position lines of travel, points lines of graph. Let's go through TV box lines, 2 waving cycles, 3 correlation setting attraction. Data file 1, data file 6, and location. Synchronized correlation setting, the 3 line patterns. Correlate track interference, ground lines of setting, line position, location, grid. All right. Process crop line centers, high interference, processing communication setting, ground communication. Yeah, connection settings, center core system, time jump, 3 line connections, right? Process calculation lines. So we can go through data files and process calculations. Ground centers and 1 track location. All right. Then it goes into line settings, into process communications. Okay. So there's so many ways of understanding how to do this, but you have to understand the basic grounds, how to set up crop circles and get into platforms. Okay. That's why you have crop circles on the Earth. Your Earth, right? Is to set up the platform sequences, okay, through the vessel, through the pod, and through the vehicle, right? Vehicle sets the tone. Now, when you get in the vehicle line setting high interference locations, you're already in its dimensions of universes and galaxies and mecha universes and mega universes and galactic universes and other line communication universes and all line connection higher lines of universes. But you all do it through time frame, location setting, and lock location system of travel. Time sequence, line position lines of calculations. Let's go through 30 line cycles and position location equal lines. And we'll put 5 line screens and position location equals lines of attractions. We went to 1 line location of 10 cycles, right? And we have 13 in the center attraction and 4 in offline communication, right? Up above, right? So anything above is waiting on signal. We got a 4-line provision that's waiting on signal in a 13-track location, right? Clocking system of 5, clocking systems of 3, clocking systems of 3, and line setting. Equal line correlates and setting at track lines going up and crossing down in cycles at location, right? Set lines of communication, lines of center, process communication lines of travel, and position location setting a portal. 1 3-line cycles, 1 center operation, 3 correlation setting attractions. Now, get it into lines of solar line communication settings, into solar sales and traction. There's a solar sail, right? Wind cycles, line communication setting to its position of its program. Process calculation lines, high centers, 5-line communication setting position program. Add 6-line division, that correlation. Let's go to lines 0 0, line communication position of program. Sets communication lines at 4 4-track position. Moon comes in line setting into its operation surface and track location. As the sun comes in line setting on the ground line operation surface in position location of its program. Calculate modified line conditions of projector of its projection and set calculation. Okay. Now this is all through line settings of 35, 34, 13 of 4. See? So what I'm connecting with is 13 of its vessel, of its pod, and its vehicle in the line setting. You start with the seconds, minutes, and hours, right? If you get a 13-track provision, right? So 13, let's say 3 is ground, and that's ground, right? So this is individual pod, this is individual pod, right? Has to, right? Get in that position of its platform to its atmospheres, to its highway, guys. Set location of powers to its atmospheres, to its highways, guys, right? Through 1 and 3. Right? Then you have to understand the platforms. We want to do this. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And tractions all through 3. What do you want to do with the 1? You want to go back force, or you want to go forward force, or you want to go line condition setting position future force. Okay? That's all through 1 and 3. Right? But it's all through the grounds. It's all through the powers. It's all through the atmospheres. And its position of its highway and track location. Very powerful stuff. All through 1 and 3. Okay? Hooah. So that's what you have to get into now. They're letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Once you get into that modifications, then you understand how to travel through it, through all mechanism settings. All right, so let's go through travels and point lines of graphs. All right, so let's go through 3 7. And we're going to split lines of anomaly. And we're going to add 0. But we're going to add line condition setting in process, and we're going to get in position waiting on signal at standby at 15. Boom, right? 37 at 15. So we had the 5-line cycle, set lines of power into ground line surface of platforms is setting of 0 correlation. Okay? So it gets more complicated and a lot more understanding, but a lot more confusion because you're not understanding how to use the platforms in division. Sectors, vectors, and quads. That's right. Everything, letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, has everything that you have, but it has much more because it's already been through its alignment of space and time through its VR, guys. All right? So I just want you to understand how it comes into all this through 1 and 3. That's all through 1 and 3 through collaboration and partnership. Powerful stuff, isn't it? What 1 is doing, 3 is doing different, but they all come together, right? So same pattern, different location. Right? You can't have a positive, okay? You can't have a positive line screen and direct signals until you understand the position location you're set is to your vessel, your pods, and your vehicles. Positive position location lines are negative, right? Positive and negative have to go in the same location right away. If negative goes here first, what are your directions up? The matrix. There's the portal. There's the black hole. There's the dark round. There's no communication setting. There's all levels of separation right away, right? You're over cross line connecting the line center. You're not 1/10 of a frame. You're 24th of a frame. Nope, you're in a 48th line communicate. Nope, you're in 72. Nope, you're 144 of a frame. You've got to go in a chronological order how it works with the computer operation of its VR setting. Process calculation of 1 lines, 4 lines of track communication revision, 3 correlation lines of power generation lines of 48 line communication setting of programs, or line communication of 24 clocking line communication to its setting. Okay, so you have to understand that positive and negative have to come together, but they go in different locations, but they come back together. Same thing with the subparticle. You take a subparticle line screen, Let's split that in communication to its setting on travel, all right? Okay, let's split it. What happens? One goes one way, one goes the other way, right? So it doesn't matter what they do in tractions. In this cycles, and this cycles, and this cycles, or it goes in this way, or does this, or does whatever it wants in track location. It always comes back to the center of operation. It has to. Okay? That's manifestation. All right? Waiting on signal is a process calculation line setting that puts everything in provision to how you use your thoughts, and your actions are all levels of emotion. All right? So we all have to stop focusing just on this through its equation. We have to focus all through pi and come back to location of its muscle memory in position of center calculation. Putting that position, this brings it forward. Set lines of communications, all line signals of clock location, one cycle. Process calculation lines of yin and yang. Yin and yang comes in 8-line rotations into flywheels and line conditions 8-line cycles. Balance communication lines, platforms 1, 2, 3, and 4. You keep going forward through a continuous force and traction. Okay? So, everybody understand that now, the importance? How everything comes back together? You know why it comes back together? Because you manifest it. It doesn't matter where the subparticle goes. Okay, there's 2 lines. If they split like this, they split, right? They do whatever they want to do. They do where they want to go. They align position locations, calculate line center. They're not separated. They're just traveling on their own, but they all come back together in center correlation. They have to come back together. Simple, easy, done. All right. And that's the same thing how you get in position lines of time frame. Seconds, right? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? So 20 now is position locations back in time. It's not 20. Okay, it's 0, 20. It's 0, 20, right? And you guys feel it through all calculating mechanism, right? 2 track lines of operation, line cycles, line conditions, solar sail, back in time, and line position of 3 lines of communication. Easy peasy done, right? So this is where you have to get into decimal line screens because they're getting in position, location, and calculation lines how to use your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles. So vessel, pod, vehicle. Okay? All lines of communication lines of vast, velocity, volume, acceleration, Mach in setting. Okay? Everything has a track location to its system, all through line condition setting that travels in point lines of graph. Okay? Graph 1, graph 2, graph 3, graph 4. Okay? Same communication lines of ground centers. Attractions when you come into manifestation system that puts everything line condition setting, bringing back everything location setting. Position of 1 in position of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 set location. Back in tractions, right? All through line settings. So that position lines as platforms, bringing it forward. Your platforms go forward now because your muscle memory is becoming stronger. So you stay in the continuous force of going forward through platforms. Platforms A, B, and C, D, E, and F in set location, right? So basically get into the pi in position lines of tractions, all set location. Powerful stuff, right? So the platforms keep going forward, right? Keep going forward, keep going forward, keep going forward, keep going forward. Nothing goes back in its equation, right? All right. So, but it's very powerful what you can do through 1 and 3, through all levels of collaboration, through partnership. Isn't that amazing? How 1 and 3 is created through all this, right? You have to understand that through formation line grounds. Okay. This also gets you in position locations, how to get in your system, how to understand your strengths and weaknesses. Now, you guys have a test on Wednesday. You already know what that's about. Basic grounds of that is that everything around you doesn't identify you. That's a weakness on its own. Okay? It doesn't identify you until you identify you. Once you identify you and the muscle memory of you, then you understand the weaknesses of everything around you. Okay? It's the weaknesses that give you strength and the poise and the characteristics of you and track locations of what you've already been through, all through travels, through your vessel, through your pods, and your vehicles as calculation. All right? Understand how to nurture, secure, and protect what is yours. Okay? That is a form of a weakness. Okay? Because you don't have control with your emotional setting. That's a form of weakness. Okay? So there has to be a strength and there has to be a weakness. To combine it to all lines of communication puts everything in process calculation setting. I showed you exactly how 1 and 3 comes in position, location, and settings all through travel mechanism. That's incredible through its force recognition. How 1 and 3 can create this all through platform of travel. So getting into that line, get you all over the palette. In that communication, sneezing screens. But the time measure puts everything in a time sequence. Timeline reference. Let's go into 4 lines of 5. Okay, we're going to lock the 4 lines on 4 lines. That's good. 4 is going to stay in position. It's going to freeze. We have a freeze line screen, right? Now, it's going to stay at 45 tractions and directions. The 22 line cycles, we're going to add 22, but we're adding another 2 to line position of bracket communication of binary. Okay, track locations. 4 cycles of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. Ground centers, position of vessel, position of avatar, and position on magnetic highway in position location and settings in track locations into 2, 2, 2, and 2 and 4 line communication. Right? It's pretty amazing, right? Have tons of correlation lines of attractions, all through direct signals. Okay? 11 cycles, line centers, equals lines of 4. 4 lines of platform, 4 lines of platform, 4 lines of platform, 4 lines of highways of platforms. Right? Sets communicates to its setting of travels. Point lines of graphs, 3 lines and 4 track location. All right, so you guys have to really understand how to travel through all mechanism lines of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols like this now. You can't cross line symbols and create algorithms and programs in positional location in your systems like this. 1 equals lines of setting, box lines, percentage of correlations. Question line, Fibonacci screen, initiate, okay, run system, position of travel lines, point lines of graph communications, 1, 2, 3 interactions, execute calculation on the screen line, adaptation lines of CPU location. Okay, that's an algorithm, right? Now, you have to understand how to volume your vast velocity and position of travel. You have to understand how to travel through all this in communication, right? Then you understand your platforms. Okay? Then you understand your platforms. Okay? Then you understand your platforms. Okay? So it's not this way, it's coming this way because you've already attracted through it through its map and sequence. So the position location, once you understand the adaptation of its muscle memory, comes towards you through its calculations of chronological order and track location. Okay? Then the platforms keep going forward with no resistance. No resistance. Okay? No resistance at all, which is the highest formations of your vessels, your pods, and your vehicles of design. Okay? That is made for you in position of muscle memory. Okay? All right. Everybody understand that now? It simplifies everything, doesn't it? To really understand how to have no resistance of anything you do. Okay? And never, ever, ever take anything personal. Okay? Because it's not about what you see. It's about who you are and what you see. So recognizing that position of its system puts everything in perspective. Not perception, perspective, right? So you have to understand how this all works through its binary and its transistor and its resistors. Stop focusing in position location. Okay? Move cross-line to the center operation. Bring this positions back into center operation lines of surface. Okay? That's all it is. And then you basically, the yin and yang is in process. And you just keep going through the platforms going forward. See? Direct and redirect. You're not going back. You're just directing and redirecting to higher levels of travels and position location with calculation. Okay? But you understand your platforms are grounds, your frequencies are grounds, your vibrations, your harmonics, in set calculation. Right? If not, you're going back in symbolism of travel, in portals and stargates of the matrix. And you don't want to do that, because if you do that, not only it changes the past, you live in the center operation and affects everything in modification, what's in alteration in your settings. Not only puts you further back in the game, but you'll be lost in transition of location setting. Okay? So it's very important. Okay? The only thing you focus on is the nothing, which is the co-creations of everything. Nothing shows you everything. Okay? Don't focus on anything, but focus on everything. Same with the emotion. Have emotion, but don't travel through the emotion. Simplifies, right? So we got a lot more direct line signals in position locations to show you how powerful it is just to travel through one lines of 3 set location. Okay? Build that partnership and its relationship with yourself. So you're getting collaboration, how to interline, intercommunicate, intertwine, intercept, inception through interfacing. All right? Get you better lines of communication and travels. All right? And then you come into 0 grounds, 1 grounds, you get into 12 line cycles, then you get into 1, 3, then you get into 4, and then you get into 5, then you get into 6 lines of digital frames of numbers. Okay, so you're building your inventories, going forward, 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 forward. Always going forward, because the positive and negative are already in system going forward in calculation, right? But different locations of abundance and manifestation. All right, through its vessel, through its pod, and its vehicle, a set design. Okay, so working with that inventory, you get in position points of 111, 112, 113, and 114. We already know what that is, right? Summer, spring, winter, fall. What do we have in tractions? Oh my gosh. Then we have position, location, and projection, split lines of anomaly, and track location. Then we cross the line signals. Okay. Film projector come into you and set calculation. Okay. Then you get ground centers. Then you get power centers. Then you get atmosphere centers. And then you get magnetic highway. Okay. And then the platforms go forward because you're already in position locations all over your memory. Everything goes in forward setting, right? Or it's redirecting, but it's always going forward. It's always going forward. It never goes back. It only goes back if you don't understand what's going on with you, right? So direct and redirect to anything line communication setting in position lines of travel, in point lines of graph communications, puts everything in platforms communications, higher levels in line settings of the future of the now. Okay? Very powerful. Grounds, powers, and atmospheres, and your highways. How to direct and redirect. Positive, negative, same location, different settings, right? So it doesn't matter how you say it, as long as you understand that positive and negative has to be together, right? They're separating, but they come together. So positive equals lines of negative. Negative equals lines of positive, right? So the positive and negative come together and travel. Okay, they come together, right? But to manifest, it's different lines of solar text. So you're creating lines of a solar text is a different sentence. How you modify that through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols is all through binary, location, or traffic of its flow. Traffic and flow is extremely important. You have position travel lines, point lines of graph, especially when you come into zeros and ones, your pixelations, and your hologram settings of streams. All right. So positive negative goes forward, different platforms at different locations, guys. Okay. So they work together as yin and yang. Okay, positive and negative comes together. So you got the inner light and you got the outer light. Right? So once you understand that, in that position location, the inner light becomes the outer light. They come together of yin and yang that process your positions are going forward in track location. Okay? That's why it's always important to get in position. Technically, you don't want to get in a frame line of seconds, minutes, and hours and talk through the matrix. The matrix is the negative cycle, equals lines and setting. Negative equals the matrix. But the matrix is line condition setting is your dark web. The positive is your light web. Okay? So basic understanding. Okay? Because the thing is, it's not a 50-50. It's not 50 positive. 50 equals lines, set correlations, and a negative lines of 50. No. Okay? It's about balancing the positive and balancing out the negative and how much you use, right? Because it's space that's not in modifications until you get identification setting. Has its own host, has its own system, has its own program calculation setting to position a process. Positive is the inner line cycles to your grounds, your powers, and your atmospheres and your highways that you have to get used to. Process that communication setting, positive lines, they come together and track location line system its operation surface, right? It's like one atom going this way and another atom going this way. They come together through a portal of communication of center operation. They work together as partnership, as collaboration. All right. How's everybody doing so far? Have you got a little bit more understanding now what your test is all about? Okay, understand how to travel through it. Not just seeing the atom, but understanding what the atom can do through travel, right? This is an atom. Okay, it doesn't need a propeller. It doesn't need a mechanism. It's traveled already, right? You should already see it traveling, but where it is. So it's already in its pi, a set location. It's already done its travel. And once you understand that, more muscle memory comes back to you in center operation. You have to come from here, right? This comes in center operation of you and the yin and yang. Okay? That's all it is, nothing else. Done. All right? Helping you guys understand these things is to really understand how to navigate yourself. Okay? And how you see things is how you perceive things, is how you become. You are, I am. I am my space and time. I'm understanding how to use that through my vessel, through my pod, and my vehicle in one cycle. Okay? It's connected to the higher self, the avatar, and the sim. Okay? It's the higher levels of the mind now that you have to get into modification of space modulation. All through travel. Okay? If we get a one center core, and it's all levels of imagination of phenomena. I get a one line setting. Does that look like a one? No. But it's already traveled. What is it though? Platforms are 1, 2, and 3 track locations and line settings to 2 line rotation surface, center correlation lines of traction. That's it, done. That's what I did with 1, right? Because I understand the grounds, I understand the powers, and I understand the atmospheres. How to put that all together is your highways, guys. Tethers down in position of 3 cycles, past, present, and future. Sets lines, communication lines in your crop circles in the elixir of 1, 2, and 3 track location. Okay. Platform sending, correlation sending tractions into sonar, echo lines, brain lines, high center interference, and compass communication. Right. Ground center lines of platforms 1, 4 settings. Sets lines all levels. You can open up a dimensional door. Cross setting line position. Vortex here right into another door and track location. Right? You don't need the platforms because you already know what you've already done. Right? So it's kind of like I'm looking at a dimensional wall. I don't need to understand the doors because I'm already there. Right? So when I put up position lines of travel and I'm going through correlation, sending calculation lines and navigation, let's go through all levels of 1, 1, 0. I've already traveled through it, but you don't see what I've done, right? You only see what you see. That's your problem. Get in that position lines, you'll see this, and you never see anything else. But to understand it through its dimension, it has to go through its platforms of communication. Okay? Then you understand what it's doing in all levels of mechanism. Okay? Then you understand what's going on. Then you understand what's going on. Then you understand what's going on. Okay? Then you understand what's going on in position to its location. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. all through 110. Okay? That's it. We're done. So it's going to help you and guide you a lot better how to use your binaries, how to use your transistors, your resistors, and set calculation system, right? Everything that you do in multiplication, especially when you go into a sentence, right? Okay. I'm the guy. Okay. All right. That's I'm the guy. This is all lines. Equal lines, correlation lines are earth and center, right? But what you have to understand, this is already set. So this is already traveled. 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 And this is already traveled. And this is already traveled. Everything is traveled of its dimension of space. Right? Ground centers, powers, and atmospheres. Okay? Very powerful stuff. All right? See you in 5. Oh, we're in holodeck C. Holodeck C. All right?